Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 23 of the Associated Wrestling Press's College Wrestling Review. I'll be your host, Eric Wolanowski, and today's guest, we'll go with the Tim Johnson calling on it. He says, the NCAA wrestler and coach, ESPN, Big Ten Network, wrestling analyst, Jim Gibbons. Jim, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Eric. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you. I mean, we've spoke several times before this, but I can't tell you how excited I am to have you on the show. I told you I've been following you for years, so thanks for doing this. For episode number 23, I just want to mainly talk about the NCAA championships that happened a couple weeks ago. You were there calling it. What were your overall impressions of the 2015 NCAA championships in St. Louis, Missouri?
Well, you mentioned St. Louis, Missouri. I thought they're, once again, a great host. And, you know, our wrestling fans are getting used to having it in St. Louis. And it just seems like the whole community, steps up. They're used to, handling that type of crowd, their restaurants and all the nightlife and all that stuff that goes along with it. It just seems to be just getting better and better. So, from that standpoint, I thought it was great. And, of course, the record crowd, 113,000 in paid attendance, that was great. I think the exciting team race brought along a lot of that. A lot of different teams were competitive here going in. So, it was another great tournament, my 41st tournament, and, it was a lot of fun.
So you spoke about the team race being so close. These were final scores. I'll just go through the top five. Ohio State at 102, winning the championship. Iowa in second with 84. Edinburgh in third with 75.5. Missouri in fourth with 73.5. And Cornell rounding out the top five with 71.5. What'd you take from the team race?
Well, a couple things. The teams that you thought maybe at the beginning of the year were going to be really competitive, given the fact that Penn State was going to redshirt. There are a couple of guys that they had there that were very competitive, Megaludis and Rutherford. And you just thought that, Ohio State and Iowa was going to be between those two teams in the beginning. And then you had some really neat performances during the course of the year where, Missouri was competitive, won the national duels. They, take home a team trophy again. And Edinburgh's performance was fantastic. But, to the victors go the spoils here. Ohio State was were the champions. And, Tom Ryans could be commended and all those guys in believing. And, you can talk about a winning culture all you want. But until you actually create it and you have the hardware to go along with it, it gets to be just a little bit of noise. And, I think that what they've accomplished there is really significant. And being a champion coach, you don't know how that gift is going to come to you and which way it came to you. And for Tom, of course, those freshmen performing well, Logan Steeper, but also the unseeded Kenny Courts. It was probably a very satisfying way to win that title.
Absolutely, I 100% agree. And you mentioned those freshmen, just studs. All three of them came, and they needed all three of them. But they got performances out of. You mentioned Kenny Courts. That was the biggest one. I was watching some of his matches today, and just what he was able to do in the closing minutes of the third period, it amazed me. He continued to attack, and when you think of Kenny Courts, it's in and out, hands, feet, constant motion, and we haven't seen that throughout the year. But NCAA tournament, the real Kenny Courts showed up. What other teams besides the top five that we mentioned, what other teams really impressed you at the NCAA tournament?
Well, like I said, I respect Iowa's performance and, what they've been able to do and staying in the top four. Missouri, I think, had a great year. Edinburgh, a lot's been said about Edinburgh, what Coach Tim Flem's been able to accomplish there, which is really, really cool given the size of the school.
Yeah.
And, and it probably begs the question, that's why we probably got to keep the scoring system that we have. You got these great stories that can happen within our sport. I remember a few years back when the American finished in the top five. American doesn't finish in the top five in anything. And so, that's a neat part of our sport. But, I thought Oklahoma State, John Smith, constantly, did it again. The number of All-Americans, 5 All-Americans coming back. And then Michigan, Silver Fox, Joe McFarland, getting it done, getting 5 All-Americans out of that crew. I think those were really two very nice performances. Virginia Tech probably left some points on the board, but finishing in the top 10 for them. I mean, they could have been a school that was right there, and so you got a lot of teams that were, that really look like they're going to be there for a while.
I 100% agree. And the thing that Kevin Dresser, Virginia is doing a great job with. They took Stevie Martin from Great Bridge. They took Kevin Dresser from Christiansburg. I would like to see that more. The college coaches that are having success, take Mike Powell, out of Oak Park, throw him somewhere if there's a coaching job. But just seeing those guys succeed, me being from Virginia, it's great to see. Another thing that's great to see is these freshmen really succeeding at a high level early on in their careers. Can you remember a time when freshmen, I wouldn't say dominate, but that they've been able to step on the mat and really contribute to not only the team, but to their success as individuals?
Well, you know what? I really can't remember a time. I'm sure there's a time back there. I remember when Randy Lewis, Dave Schultz came onto the scene, placed as freshmen, but guys that are winning it consistent or winning it, and Nathan Tomasello and you take a look at what Isaiah Martinez did this year, but these guys were dominant guys all throughout the fourth season. So they just didn't show up at the end. Some of them did show up at the end and really wrestled well, and it's exciting to see. And one of probably the common threads amongst all those guys, they're really strong guys. They're really physically, they're brutes for the weight class, and that's kind of just like when Logan Stevers first showed up, really a strong guy. I mean, there's not any they have that maturity early, that strength early, and you see that with Tomasello. You saw that with, West Virginia's 25-pounder. You saw that with, certainly with Martinez all season long. So, it's college. I mean, these guys are in clubs. They're getting great training techniques. They're getting great techniques in the sport. They're learning how to win. They've got a lot of competition. And in some cases, they've got more matches in than some of the guys that are a couple years above them in college.
So let's talk about seeds. A lot of people question, what was going to happen with these seeds. A lot of people unhappy. Without going in too much detail, how did you feel about the seeds?
Well, two things. Number one, it made it a lot easier for me to pick my Mr. Upsides, but I think that we probably need to come to a point where the college wrestling fans have been following wrestling all year. They see these matchups. You have people like Amateur Wrestling News has been doing it for close to half a century, Win Magazine, Intermat, Flow. You could go ahead and name, two or three others. Bring them to the party. I mean, bring them to the table, because they're out there making a living here for their subscribers, going ahead and seeing what's out there. They're kind of they want to get it right. They all look at what their rankings were ahead of the year, and then ahead of the tournament, and then what they were, after the tournament, what those placings end up being. So, they're never going to get it exactly right. I think that you have to allow for that human performance and human variability there. There's no question about that. But, and bring them into the process. I think that's where you probably see that those variances tighten up a little bit. If you incorporate people that are looking at this from, November all the way through March, and then also know where the recruiting classes are going, seeing these guys wrestle and spending time. There's never been an easier time to be able to see this, because you get to see everybody on the internet, Big Ten Plus and all those ways that you can go ahead and view all the little college that the local SIDs have all the matches up, that they're filming. And so it's never been easier to see everybody. And so I think about incorporating some of those guys, and then get some ex-wrestlers involved. And as it stands right now, coaches may not necessarily always be the best source for that, because they've got other things going on. They're preparing a team and doing all the things that go along with that.
I love that point. I think that's a great idea. Not because, as you mentioned, that's how these guys feed their families with these rankings, in a way. So why not bring them to the party? I think they would do a great job. And your point on college wrestlers or ex-wrestlers.
Yeah. we want them involved. I mean, it's in some ways it's somewhat of a reward, all right, for all the work they do in keeping wrestling out there and allowing us to be able to enjoy it the way we do.
So with these seeds being so mixed up, there was a lot of upsets and a lot of upsets early. Can you remember a couple of upsets that really stood out to you? If someone didn't watch the NCAA tournament and you were to say you're going to have to watch, a couple of matches, what matches or what upsets would you suggest to somebody that didn't see the NCAA tournament?
Well, I don't think. Well, first of all, the upset at 25 where West Virginia's mining end up getting the inside cradle on Thomas Gilman. That was just not only the way he went at it, unseeded semifinal match, gets out there and gets a takedown, lets him up real quick, and then bam, right back in another shot, slaps that inside cradle in, and that's a near side cradle. Not a lot of guys get pinned in that near side cradle. You know what I mean? That they find a way to bust out, but he situated it just right. It was just got him in there, and his shoulders slided just right, and the referee called the fall. That was a shocker, all right?
Yeah.
That absolutely a shocker. Because Gilman, was in the process of having a good tournament, was on his way really to the finals when you take a look at that. And that was probably, he might get that kid might get an Ohio State letter jacket if he asked the right people.
Yeah,
that has happened before, by the way. 1974, the big heavyweight from Western Michigan beats Gary Ernst, the Michigan heavyweight, and Oklahoma wins the national title. And Oklahoma sent the big man, I don't recall, I think it was Jim Wynn, something like that, but they sent him an Oklahoma University letter jacket.
Wow, that's like Mike McMullen this year at the Big Ten Championships.
Yeah, exactly. He needs one too.
Yeah, he sent out a message on social media after, and he said, Ohio State fans, you guys can thank me. So
yeah,
it's pretty impressive. Let's move on to the finals. You touched Zeke Moisey from West Virginia making it to the finals against Tomasello. I'll just run through the individual matches, and then please stop me.
Yeah, go ahead. I just thought Moisey's tournament was just awesome. Just that the job that, we've seen it happen before, that magic that Sammy Henson puts out there. He just connects with guys and ends up, take them to some faraway places, all the way up to the top of the hill. That pretends great things for that program. But just the job that Nathan Tomasello did, particularly in the semifinals. I mean, being able to attack the right side of Missouri wrestler Alan Waters, being able to try to attack that side, getting the takedown, because Waters milks you down into a 4-minute match where he's on top and he gets out from underneath. So he's really got technically a 2-point lead. But you get that takedown on him, now it's a different deal. Now Waters had to stalk him. And when he was stalking him, he opened himself up to Tomasello's favorite shot, which is the high crotch, the left-handed high crotch, the left-handed lead. He's able to go ahead and get that, and that's just a microcosm of scoring and keep scoring, right? Being able to attack both sides of the body, being able to attack left, go ahead and attack right. It doesn't always have to be a great shot, but that was one of my takeaways from the finals. I mean, the guys that got there, the guys that won championships, were the guys that could attack both sides of the body. And it wasn't necessarily a side-to-side thing. It could be low and high. He had a upper body move and a lower body attack as well. Or it could be like with Brewer, nice high crotch shot, and then turn around and go with the the spin around. So his performance at 33 was not so much of a shock, but just in the way he put up the points, both against Dardanes and Clark. Clark had a good tournament getting to the finals. I mean, not he's number 6 seed, gets to the finals, but that was a wide open weight class. I felt in the beginning that there could be 12 guys that could finish in the top 4 in that weight.
And you mentioned Brewer coming from the 13th seed, 20-1 on the season, end up knocking Corey Clark off in the finals. At 141 was Stieber and Port. Stieber winning his 4th. Not much to say there, just absolute dominance in every situation.
Yeah, and I think that Port getting hurt, he subluxed his kneecap. That took a little bit of the gleam off of the match. But gosh, I mean, he was able to fight back and and control the last 45 seconds of the match. It really speaks to his competitive spirit as well. But what can you say about, the guy that handled the media well? That's what you have to do in that situation, is that we've seen it done now, where the guys that are, the heavy favorite, they've got media requests and all that stuff, and he's, Logan Steeper got the job done.
And let's stick with Edinboro. Another Edinboro guy, you spoke earlier about Tim Flynn doing a tremendous job. Small school. David Habit is wrestling Drake Haddishelt, at 149. Haddishelt ends up getting the victory with an overtime takedown. I kind of questioned the shot from Habit, but from the sounds of it on TV, Habit looked at Coach Flynn and said, "Coach, that was my shot," which I don't think was his shot. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, that's you can always, pick at something like that, but that happens in the moment where, you see that in all sports where the decision is made. You thought you saw something, and everybody else can say, well, it wasn't there, but you thought you saw it, and I tip my hat to him, because he was trying to go for trying to win it, and Haudeshelt was too. He's a tough competitor. He was number 1 seed a year ago, comes back this year, and gets the job done. That says a lot.
Let's move on to 157. Isaiah Martinez, the undefeated freshman, is wrestling, from Illinois, is wrestling Brian Realbuto from Cornell. Isaiah Martinez, what can you say about this kid? That left-sided underhook is just, it's deadly.
It is, but you know what? He didn't really have it that much in that match, and he didn't have it very often in the. I thought he got a lot of mileage done when he was bending over at the torso and moving to the other side, and he would just move over to the other side, and then it opened up his shot again, attacking or giving the impression that he's attacking the other side of the body, and he was able to score from both sides. And I think that's when you can do that, it just blows the match open, and because these guys scout each other, their coaches are, watch this, watch that. And so he had a lot of that taken away from him, but he was still able to get to it, which speaks to his poise and strength.
The bobbing and weaving kind of reminded me of a boxer.
Exactly.
In and out.
Yeah.
So great job by Isaiah Martinez. So you can't say, well, I'll say it. He undefeated freshman, can he chase Cale Sanderson's record? We'll see. 165, Alex Dierner of Oklahoma State is wrestling Taylor Walsh of Indiana. Walsh, the pinning machine, but it didn't seem like Dierner he's always in such good position that it's hard to really get anything on him, and Taylor Walsh wasn't able to do so. Dierner picks up his second NCAA title, 2 in a row last year, won it at 57, moves up to 65, and wins it again.
Dierner was just, he was had a little tough go with Bo Jordan, but kind of controlled that match as well. But in the finals, of course, it was all Dierner. Walsh did a great job getting to the tournament. Avenged an earlier loss with Isaac Jordan in the quarterfinals here. That was a heck of a battle, and that was the 6-3 matchup. So getting Walsh to the finals, he ended up looking solid. And did it, he was a pinner. He goes after the big moves, but he really narrowed his focus down. And I thought that the Indiana corner, the East Lansing Strangler, did a good job of, those two obviously have bonded and have similar styles. They're very tall for their weight class, and he took them there. But when you got to the finals, it was Dierner, that left-handed carry, outside carry that he uses, then following up with a double leg. Those are simply moves that you can't really kind of scramble your way out of. If you give up that arm, you're going to go with the carry. If you give up, one leg, he was obviously switching to 2, and it was all Dierner.
I'm interested to see if he's going to move up to 74. I can almost bet my bottom dollar that he's moving up to 74. I spoke with him earlier this season, and he said, I'm too big to be at 65 right now, so we'll see what he's...
57-pounder, big 57-pounder, but, he didn't want to necessarily wrestle Taylor either. So,
yeah. So let's see if he moves up next year. Let's move on to 174, Brown versus Wilps. Brown ends up winning the match on a locking hands call. I hate to see it happen. Rules are the rules, so there's nothing that I can take away from Brown winning the national title. But, I mean, not a lot of offense in this match. Pretty straightforward, just, nose down wrestling. What do you think?
Well, I think that the Brown was really in that tight a match between those two athletes. A takedown is gold, okay, and Brown got the first one, had that 3-0 lead, and then I thought that the protest call on the escape really changed the complexion of that match, where Wills was able to get his faculties together a little bit, and then he able to go out and get a takedown and pretty much tie up the match. And so, the call at the end, that's a judgment call at that point in time. I was assuming that in the first protest that that they were looking at time as well. And then when Jason Peters protested the time call, they went back but I was, it's one of those things where you almost make the assumption that they're looking at time the first time, so the time situation in the first protest. But it's a tough call, a tough way to go down. But you know what? I thought Matt Brown's comments were mature, and he had been through that before, so he could empathize with Wilps and being in that situation. But he was 2 years earlier lost a tough overtime bout to Chris Perry, so he empathized with his opponent. That was also good to see.
And what I liked out of Wilps is he kept his composure. He lost on a locking hands call, went over, gave Brown a hug, all the coaches, class act. Yeah. So just great thing to see for our sport, especially on such a big stage, that these young kids out there watching the NCAA tournament, they see how he reacts. Hey, why not be a champion?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right.
So is there anything you want to touch on? 84, Gabe Dean, Nate Brown. 97, Kyvan Gatson and Snyder. And heavyweight, Gwiz and Kuhn. If there's one match you could pick to review, what would it be between those three?
Well, it's obviously the big throw that Kyvan Gatson had.
Okay.
You sit there and take a look at that. That really kind of spiced up the finals. When Kyvan and his dad, Willie, was one of my assistant coaches at Iowa State when I was undergrad. And, that was he was going to that upper body throw. He calls it the Gadsden, but it's not anything that's been unusual. That trapped arm or trapped leg throw like that with the overhook and coming back and throwing. And he really has started to commit to that. You could see it. He had a big one against Oklahoma State that they were showing up on the Cyclones.tv forever. But just the story there, back story behind that, I think is really cool. Kyvan has grown as a person. And, they wrestled earlier, and Snyder got, caught on a slide by. So you could tell that Snyder was not out there pushing as hard as he could, because he knew that Gadsden had a pretty good slide by. Well, when he attacked the leg, he attacked with the inside, with the left arm around Kyvan's right leg, and he ended up having the wrong palm down. Okay, he had the inside palm down. And then Kyvan attacked this wrist, and that's really easy to pull up. And then Snyder made the mistake of putting 2 steps into him, and boom, right? It was all over at that point. But he wasn't pushing into him until that moment. And then, but the correct way to lock that is the outside grip, outside palm down on the leg. So if you go to attack the inside arm, you're going up against the grip. You're pulling up against the grip. As opposed to being like this, you pull up on it. There's nothing holding it back. You just got your fingers to hold on to it. This, you're going against your whole tricep. So that lock, if you go back and look at it, that lock really put, Snyder into a tough situation. But I just love the way he went for it. You talk about going for it. I mean, the look and everything, to throw that type of move in the national finals was huge. And I'll say one other thing here too. The other 2 men that you mentioned, Gabe Dean getting his national title, very workmanlike. But this Gwizdowski has got a set of skills on his finishes that is just fantastic. His footwork on his finishes are. It's going to be fun to watch him wrestle at the next level. I think he's got a great future ahead of him.
I think him getting to his angles is very important. You don't see it a lot with heavyweights, which you would think that some of these heavyweights would figure it out. Zach Ray from Lehigh a couple years back, I feel like him and Gwiazdowski kind of had the same motion on their feet, getting to that swing single and continuing to cut that corner, and that's what's so important. But as you mentioned, he finishes quick. He doesn't wait. When he gets in on a shot, he knows what he's there to do. And
he can also attack both sides. You know, it's a different. He has a different look to both his shots. So it's tough for a guy, you know, guy who's been big all of his life, who hasn't faced a lot of that movement. And you know, Kuhn is just you got to be very proud of his season, because he just, you know, that scramble that he had in the semifinals with McMullen was fantastic wrestling. Okay, and he finally put the big anvil of his hips down on McMullen, but that was a match probably where McMullen needed to create more scrambles earlier in the match, you know. But if he was able to go ahead, Kuhn was able to go ahead and get on top of him in that first scramble. That was a scramble for all the marbles at that point in the match.
Yeah, that was a 125-pound scramble with 285-pound men right there.
Yeah.
So that's going to do it for our time. Is there anything you want to touch on, any takeaways from the NCAA tournament that you want to get to real fast before we let you go?
Well, I tell you what, I enjoyed it, the tournament, and enjoyed what we did with ESPN was just fantastic. The 10% growth, the 67% increase in minutes. What's happened at the Big Ten Network? I think we're up 35% there in viewership. So it's really kind of taking hold. It's tough to hear that programs like Cleveland State are considering dropping. You know, from where we've come to where we are right now. I mean, I'm talking about the last 7 or 8 years as far as media attention. I tell the story about being in the 40-degree truck, you know, in 2007, doing the quarterfinals by myself. And gave up a sweet ticket to go sit outside in the 40-degree truck with 4 black and white monitors and a card table. But to have every match being shown, I think it's just a fantastic. And you got a feel for this too, because I know you did quite a few of the matches yourself on all the mats. But the people that do this for ESPN and for the Big Ten Network and that they love. They're growing in love with our sport. We are winning them over, and so the people that are making these decisions, I think, are in our corner and recognize it and view this as a unique property. And I think that's really kind of cool. And hopefully we can continue to grow. And I thought that the wrestlers are really the show. The coach-athlete relationship is really the important thing to focus on. And we got some great coaches. I mean, it's a lot different than it was a few years, several years ago when I was coaching. There's a lot of really good guys that know how to get guys, that know how to finish them, how to get them ready. And so that talent pool of coaches is widened out a little bit, and I think we're starting to see that emanate and really good wrestlers coming from a lot of different places. I hope that trend will continue.
I do too. And the one thing that I was speaking with Jordan Oliver before the semifinals, and Arizona State, now we have East Coast, and now with Fresno State moving back, wrestling's not just from Midwest to East Coast. It's starting to expand, so that's what I like to see, is the the growth. And with Zeke Jones being at Arizona State, it's only going to make the West Coast just continue to grow on a wrestling level.
Yeah, there's only going to be 10 titles, 10 national champions. But I think that the talent pool, I mean, as far as being able to go to places and getting finished so that you're ready to go ahead and wrestle at that national tournament at the highest level, you can do that at a number of different places now.
Alrighty. Well, Jim Givens, that has been it for episode number 23. I just want to thank you. Like I said, I've told you this plenty of times. I've watched you more than you could ever imagine. I mean, I critique you, everything. But I want to thank you for the opportunity.
Critiquing me, all right?
Excuse me?
I say you're not alone in critiquing me, I suppose.
No. But I keep it to myself. I learn from everything that you've done. So thank you so much for continuing to grow our sport. You've been at the Big Ten Network from the start. So, I mean, ESPN and Big Ten couldn't have chose a better person to continue to grow our sport. So thank you very much for being a guest on episode 23 of the Associated Wrestling Press's College Wrestling Review.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for saying those nice things.
No problem.